Senator Lankford.
Thank you. Thanks to all y'all. This is an exceptionally complicated issue, obviously, as everybody's trying to wrap their head around, but some things are pretty straightforward with this. The most difficult thing that I continue to be able to hear is the continual term everyone throws around. We just want to make sure there's responsible use of AI, to which I always smile and say, define that for me. And I've yet to have anyone be able to really wrap a good definition of what responsible use of AI means and doesn't mean. Does anyone want to try to jump in on that and to give me a concise definition of what responsible use of AI means? Seeing a long pause. This is not a trick question. I'm just trying to be able, because this is an issue that we've got to be able to both regulate and be able to wrap around. Everyone's saying, hey, there needs to be some kind of controls here for responsible use. What does that mean?
Yeah, if I could just interrupt for just a moment. I'm going to chair this committee for just a little while. He's asking a great question. And don't be afraid to answer it. I mean, you can change your answers later on. But give it a shot if you would, please. Go back to Senator Lankford.
Thank you for your question. AI is a powerful tool, we believe in large part, that can keep people and society safe. But fundamentally, as Dr. Lee said, it's really about the human knowledge guiding it. So I think that when you think about responsible AI and implementing responsible AI, it's really about equal protections of the American people and making sure that everyone can benefit from the AI system in an equal manner.
Can I add to that?
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, great question. AI is a tool, just like many tools. When we ask about responsible AI, I personally start with a responsible tool use. It's not just AI. And I do believe there is no one-size-fits-all answer. A responsible drug is different from a responsible piece of financial service product, because every use case, sure, when rubber meets the road, is different. So I think we, at Stanford, when we think about these, we start with the value. There are very high-level constitutional values America represents, and within that framework, it's important to look at the different use cases and define responsible and trustworthiness within those framework.
So who would you suggest actually sets that framework for what is responsible AI in each one of those categories?
I personally believe in multi-stakeholder approach, and I think, for example, again, back to healthcare, right? If it comes to drugs and food and all that, FDA should be a huge part of it, so does the consumers and the industry as well as public sector. It has to be a nuanced dialogue to.
It's not a simple issue on it, to say the least on it, but it is one of those things that hangs out there, because as we discuss a regulatory framework, you want to hang a regulatory framework on a set of values, and to be able to say these match our values. We've not been able to get good clarity among all of us on how do you define what is that value of what is responsible use of AI in each sector. And I encourage anyone that's participating in this, because I agree, multi-stakeholder is helpful. There's 320 million people are smarter than any one of us. So to have that engagement, as people have ideas on that, they need to be able to contribute those, because we've got to set that value set on this. Obviously, the Constitution is the first set of values, but then we got to be able to set for each one of those, what's that responsible use. We have another big challenge in the federal acquisition procurement process that deals with software, and it is who owns the intellectual property. Because if we do weapon systems, there's this, we're going to keep updating it, and we've got to know this. With AI, it becomes particularly difficult on who owns the intellectual property for this, and when changes need to be made, how do you know that you've got a safe process to be able to do updates on this? Or if someone were to get into the system and to be able to change some of the system, how do you know and how do you track that? So the first thing on AI for me is on the procurement process, how do we handle who owns it? Once actually the federal government is the user. It's one thing to be able to buy it off the shelf and to say we're going to use this product. It's another thing to say this is a unique product that we're going to use that's a federal product that has AI that's built into it. You may want to try to step into that.
Yeah, that's something that we had to deal with as a vendor for the JAIC. Licensing of the architecture, licensing of the model weights, licensing of the government data. That was something that we had to really navigate alongside JAIC. I think fundamentally, AI needs to be purchased in a manner that reflects the updating nature of this rapidly changing technology. So to my second point, I mentioned that AI contracting should have the ability to include ongoing retraining. We don't want taxpayers buying Model 2.0 when weeks later, Model 4.0 is released. And so it's about really taxpayers saving money while ensuring the latest technology is in the hands of the US government. So I'm happy to follow up in terms of what has worked around licensing.
Yeah, let's do. We have a weapons system that was delivered about 5 years ago that was delivered with Microsoft 7 on board 5 years ago. And the entire system was built on Microsoft 7, and all the software that connects to it is all built on Microsoft 7, which is not even updated anymore. And so we can't have a situation where we're that far out of date, especially with something like this. But the other challenge is when we do security checks for most federal systems, we're trying to inspect to make sure that there is nothing within the system that's a problem that's uniquely challenging with AI, because we've got to get into how has it been trained, what's the decision-making in the process, how do we verify that decision-making process when we're verifying it for security, for biases, for all those things. So if there are ideas that are out there that you've seen for that type of verification, that'll be exceptionally important to us, because we're not going to buy an off-the-shelf item for AI and just assume it has good ethics that's built into it, or it has good security built into it. One other thing that I just want to be able to mention, and I want to pass this on to other colleagues who want to be able to ask questions. You had mentioned before about AI as a tool, and I totally agree. There's been some dialogue, even here in this committee, about putting an AI representative in every agency. I have real concerns on that, because if you have an AI representative in each agency, their job is to increase AI usage. That would be like having a screwdriver representative in each agency to find a way to increase the screwdriver uses. It is a tool. We need to treat it as a tool, and I have concerns when there's a focus on it's the latest thing we need to talk about, so let's proliferate that in the federal government. If it's a tool that works, fine, but we need to have some ways to be able to verify security, verify on the updating, verifying the IP address, and then verifying what is, not the IP, but the actual, who owns the IP on it, and then verifying the whole process of updating it, using it, and then also what's responsible use of it. But I just have to be able to tell this body, I don't think we should have an AI office in each one of our federal entities. I think we have AI specialists within our technology folks, but not focused on trying to get more of it. So, did you want to make a quick comment on that, Mr. Connie?
I just want to respond by saying AI is very, very powerful, and it's going to become, it is a horizontal technology. So it's really important that many of us, leaders of our society, have that knowledge. This is why under the AI Training Act, Stanford HAI is actually committed to creating educational opportunities to our policy leaders and policy members of the policy world, because it's not just one person or one person per agency's responsibility. It's our collective responsibility in having that basic level knowledge and also in some case specialized knowledge. So it's really important to recognize that.
To the former chairman and the current fill-in interim chairman of the day, thanks for your gift of an extra minute there in time, so I appreciate that.